Hello, dear listeners of the Storytelling Podcast channel. My name is Ben. I'm 45 years old. I work as a high school history teacher. Today, I want to share with you a very personal story that completely turned my life upside down. A story about how one wrong step, a moment of weakness, can destroy everything you've built and cherished for years. About guilt, shame, and the inability to forgive yourself. And about futile attempts to atone for an unforgivable mistake. To begin with, let me tell you a little about myself and my family. My wife Emily and I have been together for 18 years. We have two wonderful children, 15-year-old Hannah and 10-year-old Jacob. Emily is my high school sweetheart, the most beautiful, intelligent, and caring woman in the world. Even after years of marriage, the sight of her still takes my breath away and makes my heart ache sweetly. How incredibly lucky I am that she agreed to become my wife. A few years ago, Emily got a major promotion at work. Now she holds a high position in a large company, constantly stuck in negotiations and business trips. Being a school teacher, I don't earn that much. Therefore, the lion's share of providing for the family fell on my wife's fragile shoulders. I am immensely proud of her success, but at the same time I feel some awkwardness, inferiority or something. After all, according to centuries-old traditions, it is the man who should be the breadwinner and the head of the family. And I have to stay at home with the children while my woman works from morning till night. Dealing with household chores and raising teenagers alone was not easy for me. School meetings, lessons, clubs, always hungry mouths, laundry and cleaning. Sometimes it seemed that I was about to break down. Emily tried to help me as much as her busy schedule allowed. But we all understood we need another pair of hands. And then Debra, my mother-in-law, generously offered her help. From the very beginning of our relationship, Debra and I got along wonderfully. She was a widow, her husband died when Emily was a teenager, lived alone, and often stayed with us. She enjoyed playing with her grandchildren and helping around the house. At the same time, Debra looked amazingly youthful and attractive, slim, toned, with lively, radiant eyes and a charming, mischievous smile. You could give her no more than 50. Debra adhered to an active lifestyle. Practiced yoga, swimming, loved walking. She exuded vitality, optimism, and some girlish spontaneity. When Emily finally got bogged down at work, Debra began to come to us almost every day. She picked up the kids from school, cooked, cleaned, looked after Hannah and Jacob while I checked notebooks. She became a real lifesaver for me, my right hand. I was incredibly grateful to my mother-in-law for her help and constantly showered her with compliments about what a great woman she was. Gradually, Debra and I began to talk a lot about unrelated topics. It turned out we had similar tastes in literature and cinema. We could discuss our favorite books, the latest theater productions for hours, share impressions of exhibitions. Debra was incredibly easy and interesting to be around. She had an excellent understanding of art and history. Our conversations dragged on long past midnight. Just the two of us, a bottle of wine and heart-to-heart talks about everything in the world. Sometimes I caught myself thinking that I felt much more comfortable in the company of my mother-in-law than my wife. With the eternally tired and busy Emily, we almost had no common topics left. She constantly cut me off with, "Let's talk later, I don't have time for this." But Debra was always ready to listen, support, give good advice. I was surprised to note how many points of contact we had. I didn't notice how I began to look forward to Debra's visits, catch her every word, look, gesture. Admire the chiseled features of her face, swan neck, flexible back, and slender legs. Before, I could not even imagine that I would be gazing at my mother-in-law. But the more time we spent alone, the stronger the attraction became. I chased these sinful thoughts away, telling myself, how is this possible? She's the mother of my wife. I justified myself by the fact that I was just longing for female warmth and attention, because Emily was constantly not at home. But deep down I understood. It's not just that. Debra awakened such deep, strong feelings in me, which I had not experienced for my own wife for a very long time. A feeling of spiritual kinship, exciting attraction, sweet anticipation of each meeting. One evening when the children were already asleep and Emily once again got stuck at work, Debra and I were sitting in the kitchen discussing a topic that excited both of us, the work of Van Gogh and his influence on modern art. Wine and intimate conversation did their job. I felt a strange excitement and feverish heat envelop me. Debra looked incredibly stunning and attractive in a tight-fitting house dress, her cheeks flushed, and playful sparks flickering in her eyes. Unexpectedly for myself, I reached out to her and sealed a long, trembling kiss on her lips. I pulled away, frightened by my own audacity. But contrary to my fears, I saw neither indignation nor condemnation in Debra's eyes, only a reciprocal desire, mixed with a mischievous challenge and the promise of something forbidden. "No need for words," she whispered, covering my lips with hers and passionately kissing me back. I remember the rest in snatches, as if in a fog. Feverishly scattered clothes in a rush, scorching touches, fusion of breaths and hearts. We dissolved into each other without a trace, forgetting about everything in the world. Debra's body responded to every caress with amazing sensitivity, drawing me into a whirlpool of desire. Her intermittent sighs and moans scattered the remnants of self-control, plunging me into sweet madness. That night we did it fiercely, frantically, as if for the last time. Reality ceased to exist, only our bodies entwined in ecstasy and sweet bliss remained. For the first time in many years, I felt absolutely alive, desired, passionately loved. All worries and doubts evaporated, dissolved without a trace in the boundless ocean of pleasure. But in the morning, the world collapsed. Waking up next to a seductively naked Debra, I clearly realized the horror of what I had done. My God, how could I? How dare I betray Emily, ruin our marriage, destroy the family I had worked so long to build? And with her mother at that! I felt sick with disgust for myself. Waking up the unsuspecting mother-in-law, I began to dress feverishly, stumbling over words and fasteners. I kept repeating like a mantra. What happened between us was a monstrous mistake, a momentary clouding of reason, a flash of insanity that will never happen again. I love my wife, and Debra and I need to stay away from each other before things go too far. My mother-in-law listened to my fervent tirade, smiling and nodding sadly. And then she said softly, "You're right, Ben. We shouldn't destroy your family. But know this, what I feel for you is not a fleeting whim. It's a real big feeling. And no matter how hard you try, you can't extinguish or erase it." Days went on as usual, but I felt that I was irretrievably stuck, mired in a swamp of lies, betrayal, and passion. I played the role of a loving husband and father in front of Emily and the children, while I myself was exhausted, withered with the desire to touch Debra again, to squeeze her in my arms, to hear moans of pleasure. My mother-in-law tried to keep her distance from me, minimizing our contacts. But as soon as we were alone for at least a minute, the air would start to spark with sexual tension. Accidental touches, long, meaningful looks, agonizing self-control with the last of our strength. I realized that I was balancing on the edge, that I needed to nip the destructive affair in the bud. But the dam had already broken. It was beyond my power to resist. A week later, alone with my own demons, I broke down. I told Emily that I would be staying late at school. I needed to tutor underperforming students, prepare them for the test. But I myself rushed to Debra, burning with shame and irresistible desire. As soon as the door closed behind us, we pounced on each other like starving beasts. Our passion knew no bounds, filling every corner of the room. We gave ourselves to each other with abandon, making up for the agonizing days away from our embrace. I think I was muttering, as if in a delirium, that I could no longer exist without her, without this intoxicating closeness. Did I really utter these words, or did they only echo in my inflamed mind? I can't remember anymore. From that day on, it was as if I had fallen into a vicious circle of infidelity and lies. At every opportunity, I rushed to Debra to snatch the cherished moments of intimacy. I lived a double life, torn between duty and sweet, intoxicating passion. I lied to my wife about delays at work, meetings, and extracurricular activities. At home, I played the role of an exemplary family man, while I myself was languishing, counting the hours until the next meeting with my mistress. The forbidden romance intoxicated, deprived me of reason and strength, forced me to go to unthinkable tricks. I would break out in a cold sweat when Emily kindly inquired if her spouse had started cheating. I would joke it off, insist that I only loved her. But it was not possible to keep dirty secrets for long. My carelessness and Emily's feminine intuition gave us away. One evening, when I was once again delayed at a teacher's meeting, and in fact was squeezing a moaning Debra in my arms, my wife showed up at her mother's unannounced. Either she suspected something was wrong, or she wanted to surprise her. The picture that appeared before her eyes shocked Emily. Catching Debra and me in a delicate situation, my wife froze, as if struck by lightning. And then she screamed so hard that my blood ran cold. She screamed that I was a traitor and a scoundrel who had broken her heart, that I had trampled on her and her mother's love and trust, destroyed the family. Debra sat on the edge of the bed, curled up in a ball, and cried silently. I rushed between them, trying to justify myself, begging Emily to forgive me. I insisted that I only loved her, that the affair with Debra was a terrible mistake, a momentary weakness. I wanted to explain everything, but the words stuck in my throat seemed pitiful and false. And what could I say at that moment? There is no excuse for someone who betrayed their closest person. Emily ran out of the room, slamming the door loudly. The screeching of her car tires as she sped away was heard, and I sank to the floor, clutching my head in my hands. I was shaking from shock, fear, and the realization of the irreparability of what I had done. I lost everything at once: my wife's love, respect, the integrity of my family. I broke the hearts not only of Emily, but also of my own children. And for what? A few months of selfish pleasures, indulging base instincts? Debra quietly approached, put her hand on my shoulder. She whispered with sad tenderness, "Forgive me, Ben. I shouldn't have given in to my feelings, destroyed your family. You'd better leave and never come back here again. Try to glue back together what can still be glued." She softly kissed me goodbye and pushed me towards the door. Turning around at the doorstep, I saw her sink powerlessly onto the couch and burst into sobs, heart-rendingly, bitterly, inconsolably. I spent the next week as if in a delirium. Emily took the children and left the house. She ignored all my attempts to get in touch, to talk, to beg for forgiveness. She cut off all ties, blocked me on all messengers. Apparently, the news of my betrayal spread instantly. My friends looked at me like a wolf. My colleagues whispered behind my back. The scoundrel who seduced his own mother-in-law became the talk of the town. I was going crazy with guilt, self-hatred, unbearable loneliness. After all, I couldn't even see and talk to Debra anymore. I would only put her in an even more humiliating position. A bottle of whiskey became my only interlocutor and comforter. Getting drunk to a semi-unconscious state, I dialed Emily's number, begging her to pick up the phone. I was choking with self-pity and remorse. After a week, Emily still agreed to a conversation. I waited for her in our once cozy home, burning with shame and fear. Seeing my wife's emaciated, haggard, red-spotted face, I realized I would not be forgiven. The wound was too deep, the shock of the double betrayal by husband and mother too strong. Emily looked through me with a blank, extinguished gaze. She coldly stated that she was filing for divorce, that I better not try to see the children. They were still too young to understand the full abomination of my act. Let them keep a bright memory of their father, not the image of a lustful male. I sat hunched over, crumpling a handkerchief wet with tears in my hands. I felt like the last nobody, a pathetic slug. I tried to say something in my defense, but all the arguments faded and paled. Infidelity can never be forgotten or fully forgiven. You can try to heal the wound, but the scar will remain forever. It's been 6 months since then. The divorce took place. Emily and the children moved to another city. I am allowed to see Hannah and Jacob only under the supervision of one of my friends, and even then, not often. The pain of losing my family does not subside for a day, but I try to hold on. I go to psychotherapy, trying to understand the reasons for my act. I reproach myself for succumbing to the illusion of being in love, indulging in forbidden passion, for looking for easy ways out, not working on problems in my marriage. Now I understand that what blinded and intoxicated my mind was not love at all. The true love that Emily and I had, I shattered with my own hands. And it is unlikely that these sharp shards can be glued back together. Debra and I never saw each other again. Immediately after the scandal, she left to stay with distant relatives, changed her phone number. I think she is also unbearably ashamed to look her daughter in the eye. Although at first I was so drawn to call her, to hear her dear velvety voice. But I understood. Nothing can be fixed. Nothing can be returned. The price of a moment of weakness is too high. Any attempts to get back together will only aggravate the situation, add more dirt. We will have to live with guilt and the bitterness of what might have been. This will be the retribution for my selfishness. Now I am slowly learning to live anew, to work, not to drown my problems in whiskey. I am trying to earn the forgiveness of Emily and the children, at least for the sake of maintaining human relations. I hope that sooner or later she will be able to forgive me. No, not forget the betrayal and love me again, but at least accept the fact that I am not a monster, but a weak, stumbling person. It will not be easy to reach her heart, but I am working hard on myself. I want to become a worthy father for Hannah and Jacob again in the future, and then, as the cards fall. Therefore, I urge everyone who hears me to learn from the mistakes of others. If your marriage is falling apart, the tenderness has faded. Your partner seems distant. This is not a reason to seek solace on the side. All problems can and should be solved together if you value the relationship. No forbidden affair that flares up on the ruins of a marriage will bring happiness. Only heartache, emptiness, and the stigma of a traitor. A brief moment of euphoria will turn into years of payback. Loneliness, repentance, destroyed trust of loved ones. Believe me, it's not worth it. Take care of those you love. Work on your relationship, surprise your partner. Invest in your marriage emotionally. Don't withdraw into yourself. Always remain faithful, no matter how tempting it may be. Only in this way will you preserve the fragile family happiness, the respect of your children, and your own honor. If you realize that your feelings have cooled down completely and irrevocably, break up with dignity, without betrayal and mental anguish. Adultery sweetened with lies is the worst thing you can do to a loved one. Appreciate your other half. Enjoy every moment together. Remember why you once chose each other. Love is not a flash of infatuation, but a daily work and dedication. It requires faceting, like a diamond. And only in such a marriage is true harmony and trust born. Thank you for listening to my confession. Perhaps it will help someone to stop, come to his senses, not to destroy his own family for the sake of a fleeting infatuation. Believe me, no matter how hard it is in a marriage, passion on the side is not the way out. It is a path to nowhere, strewn with shards of broken hopes. Listen to the voice of reason, not the flesh. Fight for your love before it's too late. And be happy in faithfulness and harmony with your soulmate. Thank you for your attention. Yes, the story is definitely interesting and tragic at the same time. You never know how life will turn out. We have many similar to this and at the same time different interesting stories on our storytelling podcast channel. So subscribe so you don't miss new stories. And also, don't forget to like, share with your friends, and comment on what you liked in the stories. See you soon.